If we were to ask you about Alexander the Great, what would your response be? You might mention his military successes, his ambition, or his father's name, perhaps King Philip II of Macedon. But while these are all true statements, they barely scratch the surface of this man who many historians consider to be one of the greatest ever. From humble beginnings in Pella, he rose to become the king of the largest empire the world had ever seen. His list of achievements is so long that it would take hours to go through them all, but here are some facts that most people don't know. So, without further ado, let's get into it. 12. He was fond of elephants. The first time Alexander encountered elephants was when he fought against the Persians. Sheer size of the beasts immediately impressed him. After seeing how effective they were in battle, he decided to use them himself. However, due to their expense and difficulty to transport, only 300 pairs of war elephants were imported to Macedonia, with Alexander adding a few dozen more later. It should be noted that an elephant cost around 60 talents of gold, which equates to 100 million euros in today's value. Despite this huge investment, the Macedonian army's elephant force did not exceed 700 animals at any point during Alexander's conquests. Number 11. The king of Persia wasn't the last person he defeated. Though Alexander conquered much of Persia, its king Darius III wasn't the last member of the Achaemenid dynasty he faced in combat. That honor goes to Bessus, who was Darius's satrap, or governor of Bactria. After Bessus switched sides to fight for Alexander at the Battle of the River One, where Darius's army was utterly crushed, he was proclaimed the new king of the Persians. However, Alexander didn't stop there and continued marching east. On his way, he deposed another usurper named Spitamenes, killed him, and left his head hanging from the chariot that pulled his own carriage. 10. He wasn't a tall man. Contrary to popular belief, Alexander the Great was actually rather short. According to Plutarch, who wrote a biography of Alexander, the great conqueror stood at just 4 feet, 11 inches, or 1.49 meters tall. However, Plutarch also mentions that Alexander had a disproportionately large head, which may have given him the imposing appearance he's often remembered for. This idea of Alexander being shorter than average has been perpetuated by a number of historical sources, though most seem to agree that he was far from the mighty giant he is sometimes made out to be. 9. He loved poetry. A lesser-known fact about Alexander the Great is that he was a fan of poetry. In fact, he composed poems himself and even held poetry readings in taverns. Unfortunately, none of his poems survive to this day. Nonetheless, his love of poetry is well documented. For example, Callinus, a Greek poet, dedicated an entire book of poems to Alexander, which included a detailed description of the king's appearance. Another famous Greek poet, Homer, was supposedly so moved by Alexander's patronage that he left a carving of the king at the Temple of Apollo. Even though his work focused primarily on epic poetry, there's no doubt that Alexander enjoyed poetry of all kinds. 8. He founded 70 cities. Though not all of them were named Alexandria, this is still a very impressive achievement for someone who died at the age of 32. These cities can be found all over the ancient world, from Greece and Egypt to India and Central Asia. While some were built in previously inhabited areas, others were founded in places that had never seen human settlement before. As such, these Alexandrias served as important cultural and trading hubs and helped to spread Greek culture throughout the known world. They also played an important role in maintaining Alexander's empire after his death, as they were often loyal to his successors. 7. He had a half-brother. Most people don't realize that Alexander the Great had a half-brother named Aridius. His father, King Philip II of Macedon, had 2 wives, Olympias, who was his official queen, and Philaena, a woman of lower status, whom he kept as a concubine. Alexander was the son of Olympias, while Aridius was the son of Philaena. Despite the fact that they had the same father, the 2 half-brothers weren't particularly close. In fact, Alexander tried to have Aridius killed after he took the throne. Fortunately for Aridius, he was saved by his mother, who was very influential at court. After Alexander's death, Aridius became the king of Macedon, but he didn't do a very good job. In fact, his inability to rule effectively led to the collapse of the empire. Number 6. He lost battles. While Alexander the Great is often remembered as a brilliant military commander who never lost a battle, this isn't entirely accurate. In fact, he lost a small skirmish early in his career against the king of the Cimmerians. Later, he suffered another defeat at the hands of the Indian king Porus near the Beas River. Despite these setbacks, however, Alexander went on to win many famous battles and is still considered one of the greatest military commanders in history. The key to his success was his ability to learn from his defeats and adapt his tactics accordingly. Number 5, he was skilled with the bow. Most people think of Alexander the Great as a swordsman, and for good reason. He was known for his skill with the blade and his bravery in battle. However, he was also an accomplished archer. In fact, he was so good with the bow that he was said to be able to shoot an apple off of a tree at a great distance. This skill proved useful on several occasions, such as when he killed a Persian nobleman named Bessus during the Battle of the River One. Alexander was also said to be an excellent horse rider and charioteer. In fact, he was once pulled from his chariot by a horse that reared up and then fell on top of him. Though he was slightly injured, Alexander was able to get back in the chariot and continue fighting. Number 4. There are 2 tombs that claim to be his final resting place. Historians have been unable to confirm where exactly Alexander the Great was buried because there are 2 tombs that both claim to contain his body. The first is located in Alexandria, Egypt, where his body was originally taken after he died in 323 BCE, however. This tomb was plundered in the 7th century CE, and it's unclear if his remains are still inside. The other potential burial site is in the city of Gawuz, Pakistan, where legend has it that his body was taken after his funeral procession got stuck in the mud and his advisors decided to bury him there instead of continuing on to the original destination. There's evidence to support both claims. It's possible that his body could be in both tombs. No. 3. He was named after his grandfather. It's no secret that Alexander the Great was named after his paternal grandfather, King Amyntas III of Macedon. What is less well known is the reason behind this naming tradition. You see, King Amyntas was a key figure in the rise of the Kingdom of Macedon. Under his rule, the kingdom grew in power and prosperity. And when his grandson was born, it was decided that he would carry on his legacy by bearing the name Alexander. This was a common practice among the Macedonian royal family. It was seen as a way of honoring their ancestors and upholding the traditions of their kingdom. 2. He was related to Cleopatra, the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt. Was a descendant of Alexander the Great. Her mother, Queen Cleopatra Teuthia, was the daughter of Ptolemy I, who was one of Alexander's generals and later became the king of Egypt after Alexander's death. This means that Cleopatra and Alexander were third cousins once removed, making them quite closely related. Considering the fact that they lived in different centuries, it's unlikely that they ever met. However, their shared Macedonian ancestry makes them related in a way. No one, his heart was removed and eaten. While it's not entirely clear who was responsible for this gruesome act, it's generally believed that the person who did it was one of Alexander's own men. You see, there was a rumor going around that eating the heart of a great warrior would give you some of their strength. And since Alexander was considered to be the greatest warrior of all time, many people wanted a piece of his heart. Unfortunately for him, his body was never recovered, so no one knows for sure what happened to his heart. All we know is that someone cut it out of his chest and ate it, probably thinking that it would make them invincible. Thank you for watching. Once if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Also, check out our other videos which pop up on your screen right now. We hope to see you again soon.